David Adler started our sessions this morning, poor guy, and is bookending them this evening. And we're going to show you what we believe is the future of hybrid events, something you may have never seen before, and why you should care, because it's a place where everybody gets a front row seat. So I'm going to introduce David Adler again from BizBash, and David's going to introduce his panelists. We're even going to take you to see sneakers by the end of this thing. So it's going to be pretty awesome. Stick around. And David.
Okay, great. First, let me give this to you first. So, welcome to the future. I have this media company called BizBash, and I've basically been covering the event industry for years. And I've counted 5,764 events in the last few years. So I've seen it all. And a few months ago, I walked into a place called War Studios with Thomas in the middle. We have two Thomases. And I was blown away because I said, I think I saw the future of hybrid events. Right now, as you know, many of the event organizers I deal with are having a romance back with face-to-face. But I believe that that's changing dramatically. And it's changing because we're going to be creating a way that scales intimacy and presence and actually transmits charisma, which is the big thing that has not necessarily been happening in the way we've been doing hybrid events. So this world is going to change incredibly. And we're going to start with Thomas True from this really small new company, NVIDIA. Has anyone heard of it? Okay. He's going to talk a little bit about the foundational stuff that's happening and why we can really scale intimacy and scale data and scale everything to a way that will really feel like we're going to be face-to-face in a room without a screen in front of us. Then Thomas Soetens is going to talk about this incredible software that he's created that actually does the trick, that's powered by this small new company that started out. And then we're going to hear from a true cultural icon and superstar by the name of Gentry Humphrey. And we're going to still try to sell, and we're going to even try and sell some of his shoes, because when you see what he's going to do, you're going to buy them. Because he uses this incredible technology to break through the clutter, to create the charisma that says, I'm going to wear these shoes and these products. So I want to first start with Thomas True, which is a great name. He's from NVIDIA. He's the senior applied engineer that handles the entertainment and media sector, which means you're going to hear a lot from him in the future in this company. And so what are you thinking of doing about changing the world, Thomas?
Yeah, so of course at NVIDIA, everything revolves around the GPU. So if I could just, before going forward, if I could just go back for a moment and look at recent history. Back in 2018, we partnered with Epic Games and the ILM X Lab, and we did ray tracing, and we demonstrated GPU-based ray tracing at GDC, the Game Developer Conference, in early 2018 on a $70,000 server with 4 GPUs. And then 6 months later at SIGGRAPH, we showed it on a single GPU, the same exact real-time ray traced rendering. And this is ray tracing. It's a 40-year-old technology, and it was always the dream of everyone to be able to do this in real time on your computer, right? So by doing this, going from, in a 6-month period, from 4 GPUs to a single GPU, we put it in the power of every creator, and we democratized it. And now it goes into the cloud, and now everyone who's doing events and rendering material for events can render real-time ray-traced imagery in the cloud and stream it to the cell phone. So that's one thing to look forward to as we go into hybrid events, is that the technology is getting faster and cheaper, and you can get it on your smartphone, right? And then if you take, the GPU is just like the center of the tech that we use to generate these hybrid events. And if you've ever been to one, you know there's multiple screens and all that, so you have to synchronize all the GPUs together. So we have technology to do that. And then these days it's all about video over IP and high-speed networking to get the video from point A to point B, to bring in remote collaborators or to stream to your attendees. And we provide the technology to do that with SMPTE 2110 video. And then we have the software and hardware to span multiple screens so they're all in synchronization. We call that mosaic. And then to warp and blend, because not every screen is flat, right? So you can warp the imagery to whatever surface you want to put it on, right? And then we have our SDKs that let you, in your application, handle the video, right? And then we found, of course, the GPU. It's a multi-stream, or it's a multi-core parallel processor with thousands of cores. So we found what's next. Well, what's next is that these GPUs are incredibly useful for doing AI, which everybody talks about AI now. So now you can do generative AI. You can just, with a few words, you can generate your background scenes, or you can do things like that. And then there's predictive AI of doing analytics and recommendation based on your reviewers of what you're watching and who's watching your thing. And then there's what we call video AI, which is doing all the upscaling and improving the imagery from the event that you stream to your remote people, so that, okay, those people sitting in the venue are VIPs, but those people that are remote should get the best experience that they can, and maybe you can suspend reality more and more with them through the application of video techniques to take this video and improve it after it's been transmitted over the internet and maybe it's been garbled or whatever. We're doing this today with video conferencing, where you can enhance your video that you're sending out to Zoom or Teams or whatever, and you can add your background and all that. We call that NVIDIA Studio, and we have that technology today in Zoom, and it can just be applied at a much larger scale for hybrid events. And then going forward, you can create avatars, so that when you participate in a live event remotely, you can have your avatar that's been created by AI and techniques like that. So these are all things that going in the future.
It's only January.
And it's only January, exactly.
And can you imagine what this is going to be in the future?
So all this tech we then give to people like Thomas, who integrate it into their application and create amazing things.
And then we sell shoes.
And then we sell shoes, exactly.
Let me first tee up Thomas. I learned about technology. The mantra that I've heard is that the purpose of technology is to make what was complex trivial. And I think we forget that a lot. And what I believe that Thomas has done with his software is change the nature of how we think of a production studio and content and everything. So it gave me, I believe that we're not in the event business, we're in the goosebump business. And every time I see what he does, I get goosebumps. And you may get them today from how he's going to explain the future.
Thank you.
You can stand up, both of you guys. You don't have to sit. I'm
good. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Canvas platform to explain how all this comes together and how we enable these outcomes. But before we go there, I actually want to go back in time. Sorry, there's a couple of slides missing here. Early on in the history of hybrid, how do we come to merging spaces together? How does it come about that we are interested in this since centuries? It hasn't happened overnight that we want to blend the physical and the real together. And to make that happen, centuries back, the intersect of creative and technology was really at the basis of this. On the left side, you see one of the early paintings where a perspective was used for the first time. This wasn't because people were observing the world all of a sudden with more precision. It was because they were using tools that were created by technology inventions at the time, such as the camera obscura and the camera lucida, that allowed them to discover the use of perspective and multi-perspective and create engaging ways to connect audiences with the divine, the space behind the canvas, behind the painting. On the right, you see that was then further complicated by, creative input, and where, seemingly certain individuals in the painting seem to occupy our space or falling out of the painting. So what's interesting here is that this all was enabled by the technology tools that you see in the left corner. Some of the drawings here actually inspire frustrums that you would see in Unreal Engine to create specific viewports into a virtual world. And this is centuries old. And that has been the inspiration for us to think about how do you create hybrid, how do you make that a natural extension through the software platforms today. Of course, very known painting here to draw the attention to the center person. Perspective was a big piece of that. And this particular picture installed in a physical architecture really made these two spaces come together. And so today, we do that with technology. We have to think about how do we bring down the barriers of physical and virtual space? How do we make the audience and the presenter occupy these spaces simultaneously? A lot of the approaches where I see this not succeed is when the forces of virtual and physical are seen as opposed forces. And to create a technology platform where you bring them together seamlessly, together at the same time, has been the purpose of our platform. So to do so, we've enabled a lot of outcomes. And I want to speak to the platform not from the feature set, but rather from what is it that we have been able to create, what are the outcomes that people anticipated, and then work backwards from there. So how does the technology platform respond to that? NVIDIA has created all these amazing foundational blocks, such as the GPU, amazing network technology, and real-time exchanges between compute nodes. Now we're taking all that and thinking about, so how does it alleviate the outcome? How do we create, such as in those phenomenal paintings, that moment that keeps people captivated for centuries to come, and to create true moments of togetherness without having any sensation that the technology is in the middle of all this or in the way. And another piece of the barrier that we have to bring down is how do we make sure that if you use multiple pieces of technology and bring them together seamlessly, and there too break down the barriers between the oppositions of what may not have been developed at the same time for the same purpose. So during the conference, I've seen a lot of elements that have contributed to the outcomes that we've powered at Warner Studios for Tony Robbins and Riot Games, which is all the same platform, some of it running 100% in the cloud, some of it running locally with instances in the cloud, and some of it full on-premise. Yet on the user side, everything is transparent and direct for the presenter in space as much as for the user that is seeing this from afar or in the studio. So we've encountered a lot of opportunities to bring together the power of virtual production, streaming with Zoom, and have it used by Kate Hudson, Sylvester Stallone, to name a couple, and also to bring the capabilities of these transports and technologies and hybridize them together with metaverse-like contexts where people in Zoom are floating in 3D spaces, and where we can create a togetherness where time, location, space, remote, and close, it all collapses into one experience. We've also powered Zoomtopia for a great deal of the hybrid experience there. Everything on screen there was rendered live. A lot of it was done generatively, which means that everything on screen could be generated as needed. And then we've also applied this to Fortune 500 companies. And here we have White & Case's headquarters in New York. And this room is a 40K resolution LED wall with an amazing space that can be rented out for in-person and hybrid events. And also there we power the experience to create a local and remote experience as close as possible. But then to truly bring this to life, what's really important is that we empower the end user, and we truly want to make sure that what we've built, collapsing the divisions between different technologies, between virtual and physical, and to create a holistic platform that can live in the cloud and on premises, truly will now enable the user, and therefore I call it keep the paint wet, is the way to step into the future, because every future production, every future outcome will require to be changed in real time, at runtime, during the show. And to enable that, we need to make sure that the tools will be responding to that, such as bringing AI into the room and other technologies that are about to come at the speed of light without changing the core platform. And that is what we've built at Immersive Design Studios.
And wait, before you go on though, I want you to talk about how it's operated on an iPad.
Yes, one of the key concepts to create empowerment is to think about the user. And every product that has been developed has a user in sight that they need to determine who that is. So one interface is built for one user, and then that determines how the software will be operated. What we did at Immersive Design Studios, because we work with creative teams and we work with many verticals, industries such as lawyers, but also Tony Robbins. We work with creative people, NVIDIA. They all are very different users, and their use case is different in how they approach their workflow and the technology. So our user interface is one that you build together with the customer. Every customer has its custom interface on an iPad, makes it incredibly easy and trivial to operate. The most complex operations are now personalized to the highest degree of the user, and therefore we call it the multi-user interface. Anybody can operate Canvas, from a 3-button interface for the CEO or for people who want to have a limited frame of operations, to the most empowered user who has multiple iPads on his desk and has hundreds of buttons that he wants to program and trigger and create automation and facilitation for very, very complex operations that are now incredibly simple. So that's really, again, the user is at the center of our software, and that counts as much for the creative people as for the people that have to execute and bring this to life.
So now Gentry, you're going to bring it into the real world and show how that your charisma gets across and how you see the eyes of the people that you're working with, and how much that changes everything.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I can't tell you what a GPU is, a UPW, a XYZ, all that. That's way over my head. I can do creative. And so what I did with this particular concept was try to have a vision for the future. I just believe that if you're doing the same thing that you did 5-10 years ago, you're probably falling behind. And in the digital space, if you're doing the same thing almost that you did a year ago, you've really fallen behind. So give you a little bit of my background to tell you how I got to this point. So in 2021, I retired from Nike. I had a 32-year career where I was responsible for the Jordan brand and all the footwear. So product creation, design, product marketing, development, all that fell under me. And my goal was to create, and our goal was to create fabulous footwear. Footwear that is now coveted so much that there's a resale market of $6 billion that has grown based on just folks reselling footwear. And Jordan was a big part of that. And so once I retired, one of the things that I realized was that the secret sauce at Jordan was being able to tell great stories so that consumers could respect what you're bringing to the market. I personally believe that brands today, if they are talking at consumers, you've lost them. Consumers want to be heard. And so how you create an opportunity for them to be heard, how you engage with them is extremely important. And so when I broke away and I started to think about some things that I wanted to do to pay it back to the community that I loved, the sneakerheads and everyone else that was involved, I looked at the things that Thomas was doing with Canvas, and it became basically a one-stop shop for me. And so what I ultimately ended up doing is I started my own consulting firm, and through my own consulting firm, Michael Jordan said, "You're not leaving me. You're going to run all my Jordan golf business." And I was like, okay. So, but for me, I'm like, cool. I love golf, and I'll run that business. But more importantly, I can take this idea that I have about connecting with consumers in the future and have a great commodity like the Jordan business and use that platform to not only grow the business, sell great product, but create great experiences. And I'll share you how that happens. Then I also started my own company, my own shoe company, which is kind of a hybrid footwear between lifestyle and sportswear. And it's called Code by Gentry. And basically, my goal was to make sure that we told great stories that allowed people to respect what we bring in the marketplace in kind of a whole new genre of the business. And the first testing of that actually happened last year with Thomas's work with Canvas. And then that all led me to a company that I co-founded with another friend of mine called Link 250. And originally we called Link 250 because our goal was to link consumers both virtually as well as in-house during a presentation where brands had an opportunity to showcase their brand. Gone are the days where commercials, pretty much just don't exist. So for me, I felt it was important to give brands an opportunity to share their stories with consumers. And yes, you can share your stories with consumers that might be in-house, but that might be limiting. So for instance, if you're, think about a basketball game. When someone goes to a basketball game and they're sitting up in the higher seats, they start watching the game on the Jumbotron, more so than they watch it on the court because the players look so small. But then when the cameras pan to those individuals in the stands, they lose their mind. Like, you throw a t-shirt at them, they go crazy, and they lose their mind. That same mentality, I believe, happens when you do the right thing and you engage with an audience and you bring them into the environment. You can make that same type of feeling happen. And so those are some of the things we tried to do. And so we wanted to link people. We originally called the company Link 250 because originally when Thomas did it, you could bring as many virtual people as 250,000 people at one time. Now it's up to 1.5 million. So I don't think we're going to change it to Link 1.5, but it gives us an opportunity to kind of connect with a ton of people. So with that, my brand, Code by Gentry. One of my thinking was I could do a typical brand launch, walking to a venue, invite 50 to 100 people, most of them being from the media. They'll tell my story, and that'll be a marketing opportunity for people to embrace my brand. Boring to me. So what I wanted to do is give people a new experience. And so this is kind of what you were able to see. I went to Thomas and said, hey, look, I don't want to just take my shoe and hold it in front of the audience. People aren't going to be able to see it if they're far away. So how can we bring that to life? So we did a shoe. All of my shoes were done 15 feet wide and long, and we were able to spin the shoes virtually. You could see all the details in the outsole. You can see the details in the upper. We wanted to, act as if you were in a plane and you wanted to fly in the interior. We could do all of those things. If I wanted to bring a special guest in, I had that opportunity to bring a special guest in. And so, again, I believe we're not only in the entertainment business, we're in the business to create great experiences for consumers and allow them to really embrace what we can do. And so here I had a famous comedian that was a part of the mix. This is one of the guys that was on my team. Later on, you're going to see an opportunity where I brought in a professional athlete, Ray Allen, who played in the NBA. He was a part of it. This gentleman here is an actor. We gave people an opportunity that they never might have before. If you really were a Ray Allen fan, you might not ever have a chance to speak to Ray Allen. Well, through this, virtually as well as in-house, the audience had an opportunity to connect with any one of these athletes, any one of these entertainers, and hear the story about what our brand was all about. And so, again, the final phase of it was that really kind of did it for me is, yes, we could create a great experience. Yes, we can create some excitement. But the greatest thing for me was it was an opportunity to sell product to a large audience. So instead of having 50 to 100 people in the room that might purchase the product, we were able to create a virtual environment and allow people to purchase the product at the end of the event. So it was a one-stop shop that was phenomenal, and I think people truly underestimate the opportunity to connect with your consumer, because when you're able to connect with your consumer feels a part of your brand. And I think these are the things that we can do. Not everybody can make it to a venue. This venue was in Vegas. Not a lot of people were going to be able to come to Vegas. So giving them an opportunity to connect with us virtually was a great opportunity.
What did it feel like to be on that stage in front of those thousands of people in a hybrid event?
Well, and I'm no professional entertainer. It was just me getting up there, talking to the audience. I think it's much like a game show or any show that you might see on television. A television host is there to appease the audience, as well as the virtual audience or the television audience, as well as the audience that is in-house. And so for me, it was just making a connection, talking to the people that were in-house, talking to the people that were virtually, calling them out. I mean, there were people that were working in their kitchen. I'm like, hey, what are you cooking? You know, like just having fun with it and allowing people to feel like they're a part of the environment.
Thomas, what did it feel like for the people who attended the event as an audience, as opposed to just being on their Zoom? I mean, they felt like they were in a big auditorium.
Yeah, that's a very big part of it. They get a front row seat, and they don't have a second-class ticket into an event that is happening live where they're not present. Having them to be participatory involved is the elevating factor, but then you have to properly stage that and make sure that it doesn't feel like you are using that audience as to fill the background. No, it needs to be something that puts them in an elevated position, and that requires that everything has to work together. Your environment that you create, the speaker, the proximity to those virtual attendees as much as those that are sitting right there at the front row, how you create eye contact to all of those audiences at the same time, everything needs to be orchestrated properly together. And so to do so, to create that front row experience for the remote presenter, you need to break down the barriers between the technologies. A streaming technology alone won't do it. A virtual production on its own won't do it. You can't do it with the separate pieces. So think about the Renaissance and how they were successful in creating the most captivating spaces where painting, architecture, poetry, sound, everything was thought together as one holistic element. And that interdisciplinary approach is really what we're looking at in the software to make sure that that connection can be established.
And Thomas, the dream, the simplicity, you see that. I mean, the whole idea that it's going to become, even though there's a million things going on behind the scenes, it's going to be trivial for creators. Thomas.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we're consolidating down into a software-defined infrastructure where everything is software, and then you go on standards like SMPTE 2110, and in Pro AV, we're going into IPMX on top of MLOS. It's getting quote-unquote simpler and easier to do things like this for folks like Thomas, because there's consolidation of everything.
And Thomas, quickly, we see this all around the world at some point. What are the use cases, other than selling shoes and products, that you see from this that will change the world?
Well, we've seen it in every vertical. We have lawyer firms that are now opening meeting rooms with 40K resolution LED walls the size of this room, which they're using themselves for their key meetings, but also renting it out to their clients, and are hugely successful with it. We empowered people like Tony Robbins. We have empowered training. We've seen fundraisers, some of them more successful than during the pandemic, using the Canvas platform than any of their in-person high prestige events. So it doesn't mean because you do it virtually that the effectiveness could be reduced or secondary to be there in person. My feeling is that the future is that some of the virtual participatory moments will actually be of a richer quality than being there, because you get the multi-dimensional, multi-perspective connection to everything that goes there with high proximity, and that establishes intimacy, which is the core of communication.
And Gentry, you said that this is a better experience than if you were in a big theater or you feel something different.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like the energy that, well, like anything, the energy that you give, a lot of times the energy you get back. And so being able to just make sure that you're engaging with the entire audience, it gives people the great experience. And if you keep that in mind, it's a no-brainer.
Well, thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed your glimpse into the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.